Okay, everybody, welcome to our 5G crisis call this Thursday evening. Greetings from New York, where it's just after 9 o'clock. I saw somebody log in from Hawaii. So welcome to you and welcome to everybody else on the call. We are very appreciative of you taking this time to join us and to talk a little bit about the 5G Day of Action and what's going on in the 5G world. Let me just tell you how we're going to organize this call. We're going to talk a little bit about 5G crisis, who we are. I think we have some new friends on the line who may not know who we are, so we'll talk about that. We're going to acknowledge some of the scientists who have brought us to this point. We're going to talk about our Day of Action, which is coming up on Saturday. And then we'll talk about we have some good news on 5G, which is unusual, but we do have some. And we got a couple of housekeeping things, and then we'll wrap up. We should be done before the hour is out. I see Paul McGavin, my friend, has logged on. Hey, Paul, thank you for your help, by the way, today, helping me put together some thoughts for this event. So first, again, thank you to all of you who are logging on. We're very, very appreciative of your support, of all of our efforts. Our Take Action Tuesday has been really great and has been growing. I want to give full credit to Debbie Persampiri and Chrissy Calabrese, who are from Citizens for 5G Awareness. We stole their idea of Take Action Tuesday with their permission. And they've done such a great job organizing their community in Huntington here on Long Island. If you haven't been to their website, go take a look. Citizens for 5G Awareness. It's really good. And they're one of hundreds of grassroots groups that are supporting Americans for Responsible Technology and 5G crisis. Thank you to all of you who've been ordering the door hangers, the 5G cards, the T-shirts, the bumper stickers, and all those things. We sell those at just about our cost, and your support really helps underwrite our efforts in Washington, D.C. So again, we're very appreciative of that. I'd like to talk a little bit about 5G crisis. My name is Doug Wood. I'm the Associate Director of Grassroots Environmental Education. We're a 501c3 nonprofit environmental health organization. And 5G crisis is a project of, this gets complicated, but I'll try to walk you through it. It's a project of Americans for Responsible Technology, which is a coalition of groups across the country that we put together, I guess, a little more than a year ago, feeling that we could help some local groups focus their energy a little bit more, and also because we knew we were going to be going to Washington, and we wanted to be able to have as broad a representation when we went to Washington as we could. So 5G Crisis is a project of Americans for Responsible Technology, which in turn is managed by Grassroots Communications, which is a 501c4 nonprofit organization. It's the sister of Grassroots Environmental Education, which is 501c3. So now that I have you completely confused about that, all you really need to know is 5gcrisis.org. I will tell you that Grassroots Environmental Education is a science-based organization, and in 2016, our executive director, who is my wife, Patty Wood, won the Children's Environmental Health Excellence Award from the EPA. That's back when the EPA was the EPA, before Scott Pruitt and before the dark times. We have a small staff here at 5G Crisis. It's myself, Patty, Allie, Sean, Ellen, Marissa, and of course, many of you know the irrepressible Zoe Berg, who's been our kind of project manager on this for a while now. And Zoe's going to be talking to you later about our work in Washington and also going over some of the details of the 5G Day of Action that's coming up day after tomorrow. I'd like to set the table a little bit for people who are new to our organization and new to these calls. I'd like to just go over some of the principles that bind us all together, that we all share in common. And they're just a few. Starting off with, we are strong believers in science, in independent, peer-reviewed, published science that is not sponsored by the industry. Science is so critical to the decision making that's in the best interests of people, and we lean heavily on the science and on the scientists who have done that work, and I'll talk about them in a minute. Science, as many of you know, is not a static thing. It changes as more knowledge becomes apparent. Scientific theories and understandings change all the time as new discoveries are made and various hypotheses are disproved. It's really important that government agencies are able to adapt and ensure that their policies are updated as science evolves. That's another point that we continually make to our friends in Washington. The third principle is we believe that we have a moral obligation to protect the next generation. Our children absolutely depend on us to make the right decisions and to create a world which is safe for them. They depend on us and our government leaders to protect their health and their safety and security and well-being, and to put that obligation really above all others. If we protect children, we protect everybody. We believe in local control over the deployment of technology in our neighborhoods. We elect our local leaders to represent us, and local leaders can respond best to the unique needs of our individual communities. And that's another point that we continually press in Washington, is the fact that locally elected people need to have a greater degree of control over how this technology is implemented in our communities. We reject the whole idea of a rush to roll out 5G across America. This is not a utility that's required. We're not talking about electricity or water. And the idea that we would be in some sort of race to get this out before we really understand the implications of the technology just doesn't make sense. And so we push back against this whole idea of a rush. I want to be clear that we are funded in this work by individual donations. We don't seek or accept any funding from corporations. So your donations to 5G Crisis and to Americans for Responsible Technology, and the donations that we get from our network of private individuals who believe in what we do, is what funds the entire operation. I will tell you that Patty and I serve Grassroots without any compensation. We are fortunate enough to have a music business that pays the bills, and so we can do this work without taking any money from Grassroots. I want to take one more minute and acknowledge the hundreds of independent scientists around the world who have spent so many countless hours in the lab and in front of their computers, analyzing the data and helping us understand the impact of wireless radiation on our health and on the environment. And I just want to call out a few in no particular order. And I would start with Dr. Henry Lai, who first discovered the single-strand DNA breaks from exposure to wireless radiation back in 1995, something that everybody said absolutely could not happen. And he proved that it could. Dr. George Carlo, I think many of you may know George Carlo from the movie Generation Zapped. And George has become a really invaluable source of scientific information for us, correcting us as we go along. It's been so terrific, and he's been very generous with his time and his knowledge. Our friend Joel Moskowitz, of course, many of you know, at UC Berkeley, the keeper of all the scientific studies and just a fantastic resource for collecting all the science. Our colleague and our dear friend, Dr. Deborah Davis, head of Environmental Health Trust, the award-winning author and pioneer on cell phone radiation, a fantastic person who helped us put together the Baby Safe Project. Our friend Dr. Cindy Russell, Physicians for Safe Technology, gave us the foundation for our recent booklet about the science of wireless radiation. Dr. Hugh Taylor at Yale, whose work was the basis for the Baby Safe Project, which, as I said, is a joint project with Environmental Health Trust. Dr. Martin Blank at Columbia, one of my favorite guys, who sadly passed away in June of 2018. He was another fearless pioneer in the field of wireless radiation and human health and didn't mince any words when he talked about it. Dr. Martha Herbert, who's doing such remarkable things with children and autism and removing the wireless radiation from their environments with tremendous results. Dr. Martin Paul, who's done such groundbreaking work regarding electromagnetic fields and voltage gate calcium channels, among many other things. David Carpenter, our Harvard-trained pediatrician friend and outspoken expert on wireless radiation and children's vulnerability. And Dr. Ronald Melnick, who designed the NTP study, the famous NTP study that we were all so grateful to, and we should all be grateful to him for helping to design what we consider to be a bulletproof study. So, you know, and there are many others that I probably didn't name, and I don't mean to leave anybody out. There literally are hundreds and hundreds of scientists around the world who are doing great work. And it's only through their hard work that we are able to be here tonight and to do this work on 5G. They've brought us the science, and now it's up to us to do the rest of the work. We have to bring that science to the people, to our local, state, federal elected officials. We have to push back against the wireless industry's effort to stifle the truth about wireless radiation and its impact on human health and the environment. Generally speaking, scientists, they won't do that. They'll do their research, they'll publish their papers, but very few of them will go out and publicly advocate. So they really count on us to do this. I remember when Patty won that award at the EPA, and they brought us down to Washington, and we walked around the EPA, and you know, people came out and said, thank you, thank you, thank you, because we can't do what you're doing. We can't take the science and bring it to the decision makers, and we're so happy that you can. And that's the work of 5G Crisis and the work of Americans for Responsible Technology, is to bring the science. We don't need to worry about, you know, conspiracy theories and all these things. We have enough with the science. There's hundreds, if not thousands, of studies that prove that wireless radiation has an absolute biological and health effect on humans and on the environment. And so we lean on that science when we go out and do our work. So we're building this national coalition of grassroots organizations. Our philosophy is that if the people will lead, the leaders will follow. You've probably heard that before, but we really believe that it's true. So we're dedicated to helping you grow your organization. Why is local so important? Well, first of all, you can reach out to your neighbors and start the conversation about 5G in a way that we can't. You're right there. You've got the opportunity to meet with your neighbors, friends, people on the street, and we're going to talk about that later. Zoe's going to talk about our canvassing effort that's going to go on Saturday. You also have the ability to talk one-on-one with the decision makers in your community, your mayor, your board members, your town attorneys, to bring them the science and to let them know of your concern about 5G. The other thing about local is that the economics don't make sense at the local level for telecoms to try to come in and pay off all the local officials, as they often do at the state level and the federal level. You know, one of the senators that introduced the Streamline bill got $985,000 from the telecom industry last year. That's a ton of money, and we're not going to be able to beat that. So we have to be more ingenious in the way that we go about things. We have to be more creative. We have to be smarter. Fortunately, this is not difficult, so we should be fine. If you haven't started a group yet, it's not too late. If there are individuals on the phone who are not part of a group, we really, really encourage you to do it. And you might get started by going to visit the 5gcrisis.com website and click on Take Action, and then scroll down to where it says Start a Group. And there's pretty good instructions for how to get a group going. The easiest and first thing probably to do if you don't have a group or you're just a couple of people and you want to get more is to go get a letter to your local editor. And you'll find a sample letter to the editor on the toolkit on 5gcrisis.com. I mentioned the film Generation Zapped before. There is no other better recruiting tool that we found in our work than Generation Zapped. If you can get people to sit down and watch it with you, invite people over for coffee or for, a glass of wine or whatever, and show them Generations Apt. It really does help to make the case for us. We are here to provide you with materials, with messaging, with support, logistical help. Any way that we can help you, don't hesitate to reach out for us. Our goal is to help you strengthen your organization. We will carry your message to Washington, D.C., and we will organize days of action. Our next day of action is this Saturday, our first 5G canvassing event. The goal of this is really simple. We need more people. We need more voices in our choir. We need more people calling Washington or writing to the FCC or organizing events or whatever other action we're doing. We just need more people to get involved. And community awareness canvassing is one way to help us grow our numbers, and it's how we can connect with a lot of people. It's not difficult to do, and I'm going to turn the microphone over to Zoe. And Zoe, if you're there, I'd like you to walk us through some of the basics of the canvassing effort. Are you there?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Excellent. Yes.
Okay, great. Well, thank you all so much for being on the phone, and thank you, Doug, for that introduction. And we're so grateful to have so many dedicated people across the country that share this interest and passion for educating the public about this serious emerging public health issue. So thank you for being here. And if we haven't spoken yet individually, please give me a buzz. I'd love to hear about what you're doing and more about how we can help. So at the end, I'll put in a plug for our phone number at the office. So now here let's discuss the canvassing event coming up this Saturday, October 26th. As Doug mentioned, canvassing is a fabulous tool, fabulous recruiting tool for grassroots movements like this one. It's really critical that we engage with our neighbors. Half the people, if not more, have never heard of 5G, don't know what distinguishes 5G from previous networks, previous wireless networks. So it's really critical that we present people with a very level-headed, science-based, friendly but urgent message about what's going on, and encourage them to learn more and get involved. And this is a process. It will take time, but it's about starting those conversations, developing those relationships, building your network, and then transforming that into action. So the first step in terms of canvassing, and we have all of this again online, it's housed under the toolkit on 5gcrisis.com. It has like a little new in red under informing your community in the middle column. So you can check that out there if you haven't already. So the first step, obviously, pick a location and time for your canvass. Obviously, we're trying to rally a lot of enthusiasm behind one day of action, which would be this coming Saturday, but you can canvass any time, as you know, whenever is convenient for you, whenever you think is a great opportunity to do that, feel free, obviously. But for this one, pick a location and time for your canvass. A lot of us are doing it this coming Saturday. So determining a start time and agreeing on the best place to meet before you begin to canvass is important, and make sure everyone has enough materials, flyers, cards, door hangers, and sign-up sheets are the most critical component of the material kit. So we'll get to that in a second, but flyers, cards, door hangers, those are all available online at the 5G Crisis store. And as Doug said, 100% of the proceeds raised through that go towards funding our efforts at Americans for Responsible Technology and 5G Crisis, and we really appreciate it. So now, before we get into the sign-up sheets and the other stuff, let's go to step 2 of our organizing. So after you've picked a location and a time, please email me at report@5gcrisis.com. That's report@5gcrisis.com, just to let us know that your group will be participating in the upcoming National Day of Action so that I can help promote your event on our website and on social media platforms. The more people that know about your event, the greater the chance people outside of your personal network will attend. And this is all about making new connections. So we'd love to help facilitate greater turnout if we can, and if you'd like us to do so. Then the next step, recruiting friends and family. The most effective way to get people to come to your Canvas event is through personal outreach done by you. So great way to do this. Create a list of friends, family, coworkers, neighbors, ex-boyfriends, maybe not, but in your area who can invite you, who you can invite to your Canvas. A few days before the Canvas, just call, check in, or email the participants to confirm they're still able to attend and whatnot. And then step 4, the canvassing, the heart of it. Okay, so gathering the materials, the sign-up sheets, clipboards, pens, all of this, again, is online under the Toolkit tab on 5gcrisis.com, so you can look at it in greater depth. But there are a variety of materials we'd suggest you bring along, copies of 5G flyers, printed copies of the canvassing script, which is also available on that online, and science booklets maybe for demonstration, which are also available on the online store. So we have to remember, we have a very important message about a very important emerging public health issue that we're trying to relay to others that most of whom have never been, are not cognizant of this issue. So we have to approach people with this is all psychology. It is all psychology. Approaching people with a positive attitude, avoiding hyperbole or doomsday scenarios. We can't underscore that enough. It's really critical to have a very level-headed approach to this messaging. We don't want to deter people that are already on the fence or skeptical by inundating them with these doomsday scenarios and hyperbole and stuff like that. Like, we're all going to die. It's not going to fly. So this may discourage, like I said, people from engaging with you. So make certain that the sign-up sheets, which I should mention again, those are also under the Toolkit tab on 5gcrisis.com. They're ready to print out on a PDF. So the most critical part of this, so circling back to before, the most critical part is the sign-up sheets. And why is that? So the sign-up sheets are for building your local group, but it's also to help build the National Take Action Tuesday email list as well. So we'd encourage you, there's a disclaimer on the bottom that will say, exactly where that information goes. It says, this will only go to your local leader, local 5G action leader, and to the 5G crisis team. And that's for the Take Action Tuesday email list. The more people we have on the national email list, the more people we have engaging in a coordinated nationwide effort on a weekly basis, the greater our chances of breaking through to different members of Congress or members of the FDA or members of whatever applicable entity. And the more people, the greater the pressure. That's basically, that we all know that's usually how it works. So these sign-up sheets, they're for you. You would input that data that you would collect from people that you speak with, at the end of the conversation, hey, would you like to stay in the loop about 5G related concerns and be in the loop about local actions? Encourage them to sign up to your email list. And then you can send that over to us so we can input it into the Take Action Tuesday email list. And if anything is not clear or legible, make sure that, the person who's signing up clarifies any discrepancies. So, okay, yes, we did that. So collect all email sign-up sheets from all of your canvassing partners and send them to report@5gcrisis.com via email. So you can scan the email sign-up sheets, you can take a photo and then email it to me that way. So, okay, I think that we've done that. If you don't have access to a smartphone or a computer, please send copies of the completed forms to our office, Grassroots Communications Incorporated. It's 52 Main Street in Port Washington, New York, 11050. And then after the end of the day, once you've had a great, successful canvassing event, we'd encourage you to post photos with the hashtag SafeTechForAll on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Social media is really what's going to fuel this and catapult it into the mainstream spotlight. So we really need to utilize that tool using a hardwired computer, of course. But all right, I think I've said my piece there. Doug, do you need me to add anything, or would you like to add?
No, Zoe, thanks. That was great. I did want to just jump in with one thing about the canvassing, and that is we had some questions about legality. There are some communities where there are restrictions on canvassing, so I would encourage you to call your town hall or your local people and just double check. There is a protection for freedom of speech, and the Supreme Court has held that you are within your right to put a door hanger on somebody's door. You can't interfere with their mailbox. That actually is technically property of the post office. But the Supreme Court, in making this ruling, I just want to read you what they wrote. Quote, "The right of freedom of speech and press has broad scope. The authors of the First Amendment knew that novel and unconventional ideas might disturb the complacent, but they chose to encourage a freedom which they believed essential if vigorous enlightenment was ever to triumph over slothful ignorance. This freedom embraces the right to distribute literature and necessarily protects the right to receive it." So slothful ignorance is what we're up against, folks, and so the Supreme Court is with us. You have the absolute right to hang door hangers. There may be restrictions on your right to ring doorbells or knock on doors or whatever else. Usually that stuff refers to people who are selling or collecting money, and you are doing neither of those things. So you should be okay. But even so, I would encourage you just to make a quick call down to town hall and make sure that there's no legal impediments to your day of canvassing. So that's a bit about our day of action. Again, as Zoe said, we're happy to answer any questions, and Zoe's usually on the phone, but we can try to get her to answer your call if you give us a call at the office tomorrow. Zoe, I wanted to quickly just have you run through some of our activities in Washington, and then I'm going to deliver some good news about 5G, and we'll be done. So tell us about the Washington trip. It was fun.
Absolutely. Oh, yes. We had a blast. It was great. It was incredibly successful. It's a very, it's really uplifting to get such positive feedback from so many offices. A year ago, we were not getting nearly as much enthusiasm or as much response as we are today. So what we've heard, across the board is that agitated constituents have been calling every single office we visited, and I will run through the list of 31 offices we visited with. And if you don't hear someone that we did visit with that you'd like us to visit with, let us know, because we want to make sure we hit everyone that matters to you. Obviously, everyone matters, but we want to contact your representatives. So, bless you.
Oh,
all right. That's okay. That happens.
Can you mute your phone, please?
All right. So essentially, here's the stitch. So we met with, I'll just run through it right now. We met with Richard Blumenthal's office of Connecticut, Chuck Schumer, New York, Roger Wicker, Mississippi. He is the chairman on the Senate side of the Energy and Commerce Committee. We met with a lot of members that serve on that committee because the Energy and Commerce Committee has oversight over the Federal Communications Commission, or the FCC. So their jurisdiction, what they oversee, is applicable, obviously, to us directly. We've met with Frank Pallone, who's the chairman on the House side of the Energy and Commerce Committee, Pete DeFazio, who has been very sympathetic to these issues and has sent numerous letters to Ajit Pai, the chairman of the FCC, in recent months and years, citing health concerns associated with this technology and their stance on the matter. We met with, got to take a deep breath here, David Perdue, Georgia, Bernie Sanders, Vermont, Ed Markey, Massachusetts, Dick Durbin, Illinois, Chris Coons, we did not meet with, actually. We tried to, but they were not available. Jeff Merkley in Oregon, Kamala Harris, California, Jean Shaheen, New Hampshire, Maggie Hassan, New Hampshire, and we hit both of those offices because of the fabulous law that came out of New Hampshire requiring that, calling for a commission to study the health and environmental effects of emerging 5G technology. That was the first state to actually enact a bill requiring that, so that's great. And Doug will have news about New York, I'm sure, a little later. Dianne Feinstein, California. Brian Schatz, Hawaii. Chris Murphy, Connecticut. Tom O'Halloran, now we're going to the House side. That was all Senate. Now we're going to the House. Tom O'Halloran, who's in Arizona. Dan Mooser, Pennsylvania. Joseph Kennedy, Massachusetts. Andy Kim, New Jersey. Elaine Luria, Virginia. Mark Pokin, Wisconsin. Derek Kilmer, Washington. Anthony Delgado, New York. Bobby Scott, Virginia. Also the chairman of the Committee on Education and Labor. So we talked to him a little bit about wireless radiation in schools and brought up the Oregon bill that was just passed about declaring an emergency of wireless radiation in schools and the need to study that in greater depth. Lisa Blunt, Rochester, Delaware. Ben Lujan, New Mexico. Anna Eshoo, the chair of the Subcommittee on Health for the House Energy and Commerce Committee, very important member. Jim McGovern of Massachusetts and Eddie Bernice Johnson of Texas. So as you can, we met with mostly Democratic members, staff. On the House side, we had a lot of feedback about discomfort regarding the FCC's overreach in terms of control, in terms of basically preempting local and state control to trailblazing for the telecom industry. Essentially, there was a lot of discomfort with that. That was really the primary a lot of the focus of some of the conversations. But every single office, I just should backtrack a little bit. Every single office was equipped with the Chicago Tribune investigative report that showed that cell phone emissions, radiation emission levels from popular cell phones right off the shelf, a lot of them emitted much higher levels than what is allowable by the FCC guidelines, which we all know are unprotected to begin with, but that's how it is. For now, we gave them, each group got a pamphlet about OTARD, which is the over-the-air reception device rule. I would encourage you, if you're not familiar with that, please do go on the toolkit at the 5G Crisis site and check out our, as we call, the crappy picture fold over, which was a great way to actually communicate with legislators. I don't think that they're used to seeing things presented in cartoon format, but it was a great way to break the ice, and it was it's a very it made it easy to understand and easy to sift through. These guys don't have a lot of time, so we got to make it as succinct as possible. So anyway, that's available on the toolkit, and you can feel free to print that out and pass that around. We gave every office We discussed with every office the U.S. NTP study results and the clear evidence of carcinogenesis associated with 2G, 3G chronic low-level exposures. So there was that. And we also gave each one our new booklet on wireless radiation, which synthesizes the US-based research that's been conducted, and health impacts that have been investigated. And that was about it. We really left every office feeling like we'd made headway, that we were developing relationships. There were one or two or three that it was a little tough, but you can't win them all. And on the Senate side, I should mention, there was a lot of interest in the OTARD rule, which basically the telecom industry has found this rule, and they're interested, this rule that was initially written in the 1996 Telecommunications Act. They want to repurpose it for 5G deployment, streamlining 5G deployment, essentially. So they're essentially, what would happen if everything goes as they want, if they amended it in their favor, wireless companies could approach private homeowners and ask for their permission to install their equipment, like 5G small cell transmitters, on their private property, on their roofs. So this would usurp, all local control. There would be no hearings. There would be no, consent from neighbors. It would just kind of be really change the landscape of the issue. So, Verizon could come up to your door, offer you $1,000 and free service for life to put their antenna on your roof, and you got a problem. So anyway, there was a lot of interest on the Senate side about OTARD. We had talked a little bit about today about potentially drafting up a letter that many Senate offices were interested in signing on to, that would circulate throughout Congress and then ultimately be sent to Ajit Pai, the chairman of the FCC. And the letter would essentially say, we really discourage you from amending that rule. And, we're going to continue, I believe we're going to continue to make more trips to Washington, continue to develop relationships with these key offices and legislative staff. And we want to continue to relay your concerns. But we can feel the tide turning a little bit here. So we're in a good place.
Yeah, good, Zoe. Thank you. I wanted to mention that, in most cases, we were meeting with legislative directors rather than the members themselves. I think many of you who have lobbied in Washington or anywhere else know that when you meet with politicians, they like to do the talking. When you meet with staff members, they are much more interested in listening because it's their job to learn the issue, understand the issue, and advise the member on how they should think about it. So it's critical that we meet with these staff people, and Zoe's been great. I got to give a shout out to Zoe for setting up these appointments. She had an appointment booked for us every 30 minutes, starting at 9 o'clock in the morning and then ending at 4:30 in the afternoon. And we were literally racing down the corridors of the office buildings in Washington. People thought we were a little nuts, but you know what? That's what we have to do. And we made, 38 meetings in 2 days, something like that?
Something like that. It was great, though.
It was great. I want to mention that if you write to somebody in Washington, if you would please copy us with your communication, because it would help us, to know that you are reaching out to people, and reaching out to your representatives, and B, it really helps us a lot when we're able to go to Washington and people say, "Oh, you're Americans for Responsible Technology," and they begin to recognize the name because it's showing up on people's letters. So please, when you write to your legislators, if you don't mind, and if you think of it, just CC us on it so that we know what's going on. We can reference you when we go to Washington. We can say, we know you've been hearing from constituents. It's very helpful. We need to close the circle on this and all be on the same page. Thanks, Zoe. We will be making more trips to Washington. I have my doubts as to whether Washington will be the ultimate way we win the fight against 5G. Personally, I believe it's going to be a grassroots effort. I think we're going to be able to eventually drive down the stock price. Once we drive down the stock price and some of the funding dries up, we may have an easier time. I've got some news that I want to share. Some of you may know about this, and thanks to some of you who sent in news items to be covered tonight. The first was the August 9th decision on NEPA from the Federal Circuit Court in Washington, D.C., which was pretty much a slap in the face to the FCC. And I will read a portion of it. Quote, the commission, meaning the FCC, failed to justify its confidence that small cell deployments pose little to no cognizable religious, cultural, or environmental risk, particularly given the vast number of proposed deployments and the reality that the order, they're talking about the FCC's order, will principally affect small cells that require new construction. The commission accordingly did not, pursuant to its public interest authority, adequately address possible harms of deregulation and benefits of environmental and historic preservation review. The order's deregulation of small cells is thus arbitrary and capricious, unquote. So they've sent it back to the FCC, and either the FCC is going to have to beef up its justification that there's no environmental review that's necessary, or it's going to have to require an environmental assessment as part of every small cell application, which could trigger the need for a full-blown environmental impact statement, and that could set back the deployment of 5G by years. So we were very happy to see that. Thank you, Paul McGavin, for bringing that to my attention today and reminding me about that. So that was great. As Zoe mentioned before, New York State has now set up its own 5G commission to look into the health effects of 5G. These are really great things that happen at the state level because they bring attention to the problem, and they publicize the risks that are here. And I'll quote from this New York legislation: the commission is supposed to look into, quote, why has the insurance industry recognized wireless radiation as a leading risk and has placed exclusions in their policy for financial damages caused by health claims related to exposure to wireless radiation? Why do manufacturers of wireless equipment warn users to keep such devices at least 5 millimeters from the body? Why have peer-reviewed studies, including the recently published U.S. toxicology program showing a wide range of statistically significant DNA damage, brain and heart tumors, infertility, and many other ailments, been ignored by the FCC, and so on? So getting these things into legislation proposed at the state level is really important. If you live in a state that hasn't yet established a commission, please go onto the 5gcrisis.com website and download our sample state code and send it to your state reps and say, look, don't tell us there's nothing you can do. New York has done it. New Hampshire's done it. Other states have done it. Why can't we do it here? Let's get a state commission going to look into the health impacts of 5G. Let's see. New York City filed an unbelievably great, well-written, well-reasoned brief in the effort that's ongoing by local communities to roll back the FCC's August 2018 order. I think a lot of you know that local municipalities are suing the FCC, saying that their ruling was arbitrary and capricious, that it took away their local authority, that it was unconstitutional. But nobody has quite done it like by New York City. I'm trying to find out who wrote the brief because I want to send them a present because it was so well written. If you haven't seen it yet, please do. And let me send you to Paul's website. His website is scientists4wiredtech.com with the number 4, not the word 4. Scientists4wiredtech.com. And there under the search box, just search for NATOA, NATOA, which is the acronym for the groups that are fighting this. And read that brief if you want to have a smile on your face. Senate Bill 1699, the Streamline Act. Thanks to all of you who took us up on our Take Action Tuesday to call Washington and complain about that. That was the bill that was introduced by Senator John Thune, the guy who took the $1 million from the wireless industry. We hope that Congress won't try to sneak this bill into law by attaching it to a spending bill. But the fact that the FCC is currently in court and is being challenged on constitutional grounds for that order may dissuade lawmakers from pushing ahead with 1699. We're keeping an eye on it. If it moves, we'll let you know. At the moment, it's just sitting there collecting dust, and so be it. Local governments on Long Island say no to small cell deployments. There are 3 communities on Long Island, and I don't think it's because we happen to be on Long Island. It's coincidence. But anyway, well, not really, but Flower Hill, Lake Success, and Manor Haven, 3 villages on Long Island, have basically said to the wireless companies, no, I'm sorry, you can't put your 5G small cell transmitters in our village. All 3 of them are being sued, but they base their decisions primarily on aesthetics and property values, which are legally defensible reasons for refusing 5G. We hope more communities will conduct their hearings and then say no. Again, this is a matter of bringing awareness to the issue. But if a lot more towns just said no, it would seriously set back this race to 5G. Yes, you will probably be sued, but the worst that can happen is you'll get a delay of many months if your attorney is good, and eventually the case will be remanded for reconsideration. There's usually almost never any cost to the municipality. So the idea that the threat from the telecoms that we're gonna bankrupt you is pure bull. They don't have the power to do that. And I don't think they would anyway. They've got enough bad press as it is. And finally, the DC Court of Appeals case 1910-85. This is called the Irregulators versus the FCC. The Irregulators is not a pop band. This is a group of lawyers and others who are making a very strong and very interesting case to the court about the intentional misallocation of hundreds of millions of dollars in interest rate broadband construction funds that were illegally diverted by the telecoms. These funds were supposed to be used to bring wired broadband to underserved areas, to close the digital divide. And everybody paid a little bit of money in on your phone bill. It went into this fund. But instead, the telecoms took the money and decided to use it where they could make more money, which is in wireless. So the ratepayers who paid a little bit more in their telephone bill every month to help everyone get broadband ended up helping the telecoms build out their wireless infrastructure instead. So now the underserved communities are still underserved, and we're all dealing with the various impacts of the wireless build out. The case has already been accepted by the DC Court of Appeals. This is a big deal, and it needs to be argued. Bruce Krushnick and his irregulators are seeking financial assistance to help make sure their case is properly argued in front of the DC Court of Appeals judges. We're not here to tell you what to do, but it sure looks like a worthwhile cause to me. If you want to learn more, you can Google theirregulators.org. And they are accepting contributions through their financial sponsor, which is the Ecological Options Network, a 501c3. So we're happy to announce that, and we wish them all the best. It would be a tremendous earth-changing event, sea-changing event if they were successful. Finally, a couple of housekeeping things before we go. If you want to use the 5G crisis name or the logo on your signs or your literature, we ask you to please clear the copy with us. We want to try to deliver a consistent science-based message, and I'm sure you're all really smart and you're all doing the right thing, but we would just kind of like to see it before you go to press. So again, you want to use the 5G crisis logo or the 5G crisis name, please just send us a copy of what you want to do, because we'd like to see it before you go to the expense of printing. And finally, this last Tuesday, we sent out our Take Action Tuesday, a request for testimonial videos. That is an ongoing request. We didn't get a lot of response because I think it may take some people a little bit of time to organize what they want to do, but we really are excited about the idea of putting together some videos with people talking about why they're opposed, especially moms of young children. If you've got young kids, tell us why you're fighting the 5G thing. And you can send that to us. We're actually good at video editing, and we'd like to put together some videos that we hope will have a real life and get your word, get your ideas out there for everybody. That's going to do it for us tonight. I really appreciate you hanging on the phone. I can see we got 80 people on the phone tonight. Thank you so much for being part of our call. Thank you for all the work you're doing. Your inspiration, you are the inspiration for our work. We come in every day and Zoe says, oh, I heard from so-and-so, I heard from so-and-so, I heard from so-and-so, I heard from so-and-so. And that really kind of drives us to continue going. You know, this is a cooperative effort between you and us. We're happy to do everything we can on our end. We depend on you to go out and spread the word to your communities. And any way we can help you do that, we want you to be in touch with us and let us know. That's going to do it for our call tonight. Thank you again for being part of it. I have recorded the call. If you came in late and you want a copy of this, just give us a call in the morning or send us an email, and we'll be happy to send you a recording. Thank you so much again. Good luck on Saturday. Let's get some more people behind us, and let's stop this thing. Thank you all, and good night.